Hey everyone, Chang here. This is the practice problem video series. For today's standard test question, we have this problem right here. Which of the following is negative? I to the 25th power, I to the 50th power, I to the 75th power, I to the 100th power, and I to the 200th power. Now, a problem like this, there may be multiple answers. There may be one answer, there may be none. So we actually have to test them all out. If it's just a standard multiple choice, then you're lucky, there's only one. If not, you have to make sure you try every single one. Okay, now if you look at this and you are absolutely confused with no inclination on how to go about this, we don't even know what I is, then that's going to be a problem, because this whole problem is based on I and our fundamental understanding of I. So what is I? I is an imaginary number. More importantly, I just means equals negative or square root of -1. Okay, now here's the key. I equals square root of -1. And just from this and three other, we can figure out entirely all of this quite simply. So I equals square root of -1. I squared is just basically square root of -1 times square root of -1. So you can guess it. It's just -1. I cubed is technically just I to the second power times I, which I to the second power is -1. And if you want, you could put it as square root of -1, but a lot of people love the common notation of just making it -I. And I to the fourth power is just I squared times I squared, which we know I squared is -1. So -1 times -1 is just 1. Okay, that's the key, right? I to the fourth power is just 1. So any multiple of 4 in terms of I exponents, right, would just equal 1. So that will help us check all of this. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at these, because this one right now is actually pretty clear. If I'm looking at I to the 100, right, that's technically I to the 4, right, times 25. And if we use the property of exponents, that's technically I to the 4th all to the 25th. So I to the 4th is 1. In that case, you just have 1 to the 25th time, which is, guess what, still 1. Okay, so we know from that it is not negative in any way. So we can cancel it right away. Gone, right? Well, I to the 200, we know is positive as well. Why? Because guess what? I to the 200 is just I to the 100 squared, right? Because then these two would multiply and become 200. We know that I to the 100 is just 1. So 1 times 1 again, when you square it, it's just 1. So just like that, these two are gone. Now we have these three left. Okay, now here's the thing. For I to the 25th, right, we can rewrite it as I to the 24th plus 1, which is basically I to the 24th times I. I to the 24th is a multiple of 4. So in this case, once again, 1 times I, and I technically is positive in this case, is still positive. So this goes away. Now we have 2 left, right? We have the 50 and we have the 75. Now, here's the key. Remember, we know that if we have a multiple of 4, it's going to be 1, it all cancels. So other than that, what we should do in this case is find the remainder. Because if we divide, for example, 50 by 4, what does that give us? Well, 1 right here, 4, 1, 0, 2 right here. It's going to be 8, subtract 2, remainder 2. So that means that there's going to be 2 left. All the other ones are multiple of 4. It doesn't matter 12, but the remainder is the key, right? All the multiples of 4 become 1, they disappear basically. 1 times itself doesn't change anything. We have a remainder 2, so technically after you simplify all of this, I to the 50th is the same as I to the second. I to the second, we know is -1. So this might be our answer. It might be our one and only answer. But we should always double check. I to the 75th. Well, in this case, we can just do 75 divide by 4, and that goes in here one time, 3, and then, 4, and then you have 3 left. And then after that, you bring a 5. This goes in here, what, 8 times? That's 32. Subtract, and then you have 3, so it's remainder 3. So technically, I to the 75th is the same as I to the third power. Well, I to the third power, we know that is negative. So in this case, well, this is also a negative number. So for this particular question, we have I to the 50th and I to the 75. They're both negative numbers. Thank you so much for watching this video on the standardized test question involving I. See you in the next one.